You're listening to Exposure. It's 104.9 XFM, and that is Graham Coxon, a classic now, freaking out on Exposure XFM. And we're very pleased to say that Graham Coxon is back. He has a brand new album, and we're going to give it the Exposure album playback treatment tonight. Graham, welcome to the studios of XFM once more. How are you doing?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
It's been a while, I guess, 2 years since we last had a chat on the radio. Back in 2004, we played the whole of Happiness and Magazines, and you talked us through it track by track. Now, the new album is here, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. And I remember in our conversation then for the last album, you'd already started thinking about the next album. You said you're already writing material and already thinking ahead, like you'd kind of moved on from Happiness and Magazines. And
Yeah.
so I guess that's when the genesis was of the new record.
It was. I always it's always ongoing. I don't seem to stop very much. So yeah, around that time when things are becoming released, that's when I normally collecting data and feelings or whatever for my next stuff.
Yeah, ideas, I suppose. But then you've been pretty busy, because Happiness and Magazines was very successful and took you to a whole load of new people, and you played rather a lot. You seem to be playing constantly, actually, around that time. And when did you get time to actually sit down and put together this information and ideas that would be Love Travels at Illegal Speeds?
Oh, blimey, I don't know. It's just kind of a while back again, because I finished the record about a year ago, nearly.
Right, that long ago.
And so during the sometime before then, I'm not quite sure. I do get this time, and then it's sort of like I don't know really.
Yeah.
It's kind of like now when I'm writing again. It's just whenever I pick up the guitar in the evening and something happens or something doesn't. And generally, when something does happen, I seem to hit a sort of an area of... I get in some sort of zone, and usually they come in 3s and 4s or something like that.
Yeah.
But it can be ages before that. I don't really pressure myself. It just happens when it happens, really. I don't sort of say, right, I'm going to start my next album.
Yeah.
Writing my next album. It's sort of there's still a lot. There's been a lot sort of written and doodled for the next one already.
Right. And so you say that this album was already finished by this time last year, so February 2005. Finished recording or just finished writing?
I'd written a lot of it. I think really it was last spring I recorded it. My memory is absolutely shocking, actually. But something like that. Yeah, it's been finished for a long time, but it was exactly the same as Happiness and Magazines. Same sort of 7 weeks to record, a couple of weeks to mix.
And all kind of done and dusted in 2 months or so.
Yeah.
And so was the process the same and produced by Stephen Street? I mean, Happiness and Magazines was as well.
Yeah.
So how did you do it in terms of recording? Did you record most of the parts, or did you get the band to come in and play with you? Or?
No, I did it exactly the same.
Right.
It was, Happiness and Magazines I think I was pleased with, but there were still areas where I thought I could have done better, and I guess I stayed in a similar place with this album. But, I mean, to me, I developed kind of in a big way in kind of small areas that probably most people wouldn't notice, casual listeners or whatever. But yeah, it was sort of I think having toured with Happiness and Magazines, I sort of realised where I wanted to progress or where I wanted to tidy up or do better, and kind of go as far as I could in that direction, I think. That's the Happiness and Magazines kind of direction.
Yeah, and so you were happy with that way of working, so you felt, well, I'll do it all again myself, because that's working for me.
Yeah, and just generally the whole song and those type of songs.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have been tempted after playing with the band to kind of bring them in as well, to kind of get more of a band feel. But I'm always amazed when I hear the records that you've actually recorded all the parts for, how like a band it sounds anyway.
Yeah. Well, I sort of play in a quite an unhinged way, I suppose, but I'm very sort of tight to myself. I've just listened to bands all my life. I know how they sound. I suppose it's sort of natural for me. And I don't like teaching people parts. It takes ages, and I demo everything at home, so it just makes sense to me to just do it.
And so when the bands have to learn the parts for the touring, what do you just hand them the record and say, yeah, come back once you've learned it?
Basically,
Yeah.
I kind of say, look, let's have a go at this one, that one, this one, that one, like 4 or 5, and then they sort of learn it, and then we rehearse them until we can all play it pretty much like the record, and, you know, they're free to drop in their own little bits and bobs if they want to, but generally we sort of just try and basically get it like the record, and then during the shows they sort of progress even more, really, develop a bit more as band things.
Yeah. And so if the record was all pretty much completed by, I don't know, spring, early summer last year, why wait until now, until now to release it? I mean, was that...
I didn't want to be in a rush with artwork. I kind of wanted a rest. I'd been touring this time last year in America. Was it? God, I mean, I can't...
But you'd been busy.
Something
so
like
you
that.
needed a bit of a breather.
Yeah, last summer and autumn I was sort of at home practicing the guitar, really, practicing acoustic guitar playing and unearthing a lot of old music stuff.
Yeah. What, other people's old music? Or
Other people's old music, English old music, figuring out how to play some stuff on David Graham records and Bert Jansch.
Right. Did you watch that Folk Britannia series at all?
I managed to get a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. It has some great footage of David Graham playing back in the 60s and stuff
I
like
managed to do a gig with him and Bert Jansch just before Christmas, which was quite great.
Yeah, I read about that. How did that happen? I mean,
By accident.
How did that, purely accidental? Or
Well, I see Davey quite a lot in Camden, and we've had chats and stuff like that, spontaneous kind of jams. And then I saw that he was playing there with Bert, but it had sold out. So I managed to get hold of the promoter, and he told me to, come along and bring a guitar. You might be able to have a little play backstage. And so after set 1 of those two Davey had played and Bert had played, then there was a break, and I went back to say hello, and then they sort of insisted I open the second half, which was really frightening because it wasn't a mic'd up venue at all. It was 200 people and a chair, and it was very difficult. But I only played 2 songs.
And did you play your own songs? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played old songs, Latte and Liveline.
Right.
Yeah.
From the earlier albums. Okay. Well, I mean, in a way, there's only one song that you'd say would be folk influenced on this record. I mean, it seems much more of a rocky album than a folky album. Do you think there'll be more? I mean, we'll talk about this later, but more of that.
Well, this album is a kind of been chopped down from about 20 odd songs. So I didn't just record 13 songs and put them on an album. There's a lot more, but I sort of focused it down to these because of the subject matter and other things like that.
Yeah, one review I read said that this is a concept album. Would you agree with that opinion? I mean, what's behind the album title?
I think you have to call it a concept album before you start, really, before. You can't just suddenly call things afterwards. I think if it was a concept album, it would have more of a chronology.
Yeah.
It's not, in any way, a concept album.
Yeah. No, that's what I thought, but the reviewer obviously thought otherwise. But I guess, what he must have been picking up on was the fact that so many of the songs are connected to love or in various different ways. And presumably that's behind the title as well, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds.
Yeah, that's just a trick, really, because it's not really about love. It's sort of about anything but. It's about all of those things that you might mistake for it, but aren't. Like some of the more bass drives, male drives, jealousy, kind of a lot of ugly stuff, really. I sort of became aware that maybe I'd written a lot about depression, alcoholism, and all this lot, as if it was perfectly normal, and had written about very much everyday stuff. Hadn't used wit very much, or written much about ugly stuff, and so some of it's about ugly things, but sort of written. It's kind of unhinged in areas.
Okay, well, we're going to hear it now. We're going to hear the whole thing tonight with Graham talking us through it track by track. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll be back with the first track from the brand new Graham Coxon album, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. Do not go away. You're listening to Exposure. It's XFM. It's John Kennedy with you until 1. And tonight we have Graham Coxon in the house. That is Graham Coxon, Standing on My Own Again, the first single and the first track from the brand new album, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. It's getting the Exposure album playback treatment tonight. And we have Graham in the studio with us. Graham, what can you tell us about Standing on My Own Again?
It was one of the last ones I wrote for a record. It was very simple and I don't know. It's just got a sort of it's terribly grey and not very positive, isn't it? And sort of very simple symbolism about ships going down and
and then you're going down
and being stuck.
Yeah. It's I mean the album as a whole, and not so many of the tracks seem to be such a great kind of amalgamation of all the different things that you've liked musically, and that you can hear bits of new wave in there or bits of 60s stuff in there, but you've managed to really put them together really, really well, so they don't really specifically sound pertinent to one particular era, but to kind of all at once, which is pretty clever, really. Is that accidental?
Yeah. I don't know, I sort of thought, well, getting Jonathan Richmond, Sham 69, Canned Heat, and Fairport Convention in one mass, I thought might be quite an interesting challenge. I suppose I can't help but tickle my own ears. I like to. I'm quite hard to please myself, I suppose. So I need a lot of sort of dynamic and stuff to happen for me to find something listenable or interesting.
I Can't Look at Your Skin is the next track. What can you tell us about this?
That was one of the earliest one I wrote in the summertime when I just started writing, and I concentrated a lot on writing these kind of despairing lyrics about, oh God, blimey, I don't know what it's about, you know, it's sort of like at school when there's a girl who you really like who's sort of more developed than the other girls in your year or whatever, and she's going out with a lot of older boys, and you're just wondering why she's doing that. I don't know. It's about that sort of stuff, you know. Pretty adolescent, but that kind of thing always stays with you. The reasons why people do things for attention and for attention and for feeling self-worth. It's about that.
And this is it. Graham Coxon, I Can't Look at Your Skin. Graham Coxon, I Can't Look at Your Skin, from the brand new album Love Travels at Illegal Speeds, which is getting the Exposure album playback treatment tonight. It is Exposure, it's XFM, and we're working our way through the album with Graham's help. And Don't Let Your Man Know is the next track. A kind of, is it an illicit affair? Is it true? All this kind of jiggery pokery that goes on in this song?
I think it's just indiscreet. Yeah, it's probably talking about what I said about the ugly side of the male. What should we call it?
Male persona.
Male persona.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a Randy song, I suppose, is what it is, and I just put a little something in about, you know, these lyrics just come out of nowhere. Some of the songs are autobiographical, but some of them can be kind of an elaboration of an extremely little feeling or something from the news or something from the TV or a book, and then, you know, they're sort of then battered down with a kind of tenderizer into lyric shapes. So Don't Let Your Man Know, I sort of wrote, I just had a bit of a G bit going on to an E bit going on. I didn't know what was going to happen in that when I was writing it, and then I just sang Don't Let Your Man Know over it. I just thought it was kind of a cheeky song, really. But then I kind of wrote the verses to it, and it seems to get more and more frantic. It's quite a frantic song.
Yeah, definitely. This is it. Graham Coxon, Don't Let Your Man Know, on Exposure, XFM. It is Graham Coxon, Don't Let Your Man Know, the third track on the brand new album, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. And so far, we've had the pace well and truly up. We're going to take things down just a little bit with Just a State of Mind, which is the next track. And I like this one because there's so many different little subtle bits that are going on in there in terms of instrumentation. And I love the drumming on it. Did you do the drumming?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because some of the way that it kind of reminds me in parts of, I don't know, a Dusty Springfield or Sandy Shore song, but the rest of the song isn't like that at all. And similarly, is it keyboards or brass that kind of...
Brass,
yeah, that underpins it really nicely, but only in a couple of places, no. And, yeah, it's very nice. So, I mean, it's a great arrangement. Did you put that all together yourself, or did you work on that with Stephen Street, or... What?
Yeah, basically. It's not too much different from the demo I did at home, apart from adding piano and French horns and some flugelhorns and a trumpet. But I mean, just those sorts of chords in the chorus were, I mean, really were reminding me of things like, you know, love and the band, and it just seemed obvious to me that it needed brass there. So we got them in.
No, it works a treat. And there's a line about it's so lonely to love someone, and then it's almost as if there's a lonely guitar solo comes in shortly afterwards.
After a sort of psychedelic wipeout.
That's very nice indeed. This is it. Just a State of Mind. You're listening to Exposure, it's XFM, and it's Just a State of Mind. Graham Coxon from the brand new album, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. You and I is the next track. We're working our way through it track by track with a little help from Graham. What can you tell us about You and I, Graham?
This is one of them kind of ones that comes from two areas. It sort of comes from, people may think obviously from a relationship area, but it was kind of about talking to my little girl that it's going to be a while till I get to see you smile. I was explaining to her, really, that I had to go away, go on tour and things like that. We talk about it quite a lot, you know, what I have to do, what I do for a living sort of thing, and what that entails, and what it means, and what she shouldn't worry about, and things like that. And I was just explaining it. So I had that line, but also that's coupled with a sort of an idea that it is about a relationship, about commitment, and things like that. I've got to go away, so I'd kind of like to know what's going on. But I sort of like the main melody. I was sort of singing that, and it was reminding me of sort of Dylan and Ray Davis at the same time, and I thought it was quite an interesting melody. And that's it. It's quite a poppy job, yeah.
No, it's nice. This is it. Graham Coxon, You and I. Graham Coxon, You and I on Exposure XFM. We're working our way through the brand new Graham Coxon album, which is out next week in the shops. Love Travels at Illegal Speeds is the title of it, and Graham is here talking us through it track by track, and we take the pace back up with Gimme Some Love, which kind of reminds me of the Rosillos, Top of the Pops, a bit of it. You into the Rosillos?
Oh, yeah.
That kind of, I mean, so many of the riffs on
Don't Let Your Man Know sounds like that one. Sounds like the Rosillos.
They had that kind of, it seemed to have amalgamated all these different people from that era and then put them bits together with other bits really nicely. What's Gimme Some Love about?
I think that's about the same thing as Don't Let Your Man Know is. You know, and I think there's sort of a lot of songs about feeling isolated, but within a huge and busy city, and just how you kind of deal with having any kind of company in that situation, considering the fact that a lot of this record is it's not particularly about going out, it's about not particularly liking going out. And so this is just a kind of a frustrating song. This is one of the first ones I wrote for the record, I think. And It was just meant to be, you know, leery and whiny and kind of pathetic, really. About
Is it good fun blasting out these tunes in the studio? I mean, it sounds it to me.
Yeah, it was good fun doing the demo at home to this because it was kind of half improvised, really. So the demo is really funny, but it got sort of smartened up a bit. But I still wanted it to have that unhinged quality, and so it sort of careers into this guitar solo that is sort of hardly playable or it gives this impression that it's sort of whoever's playing it is too frustrated to actually play it properly and gives up halfway through. I quite like illustrating points in that way.
Mm.
That's why I don't think technically flash playing is always good, because it really is very one-dimensional. I really do like hearing people's mind work in sort of tandem with what the emotional drive of the song is.
Yeah.
So that's why I was messing around with the solo, that guitar solo in that. Yeah.
So we can almost feel the emotion as you play it.
Well, yeah, you know, just feel the what it is really. Frustration in it.
Give me some love. Graham Coxon on Exposure XFM. I Don't Want to Go Out is the next track, which is another rocker, out rocking Queens of the Stone Age or something like that. I love it. It's kind of in two parts, isn't it? It's like there's a second part to it that kind of changes slightly.
Yeah. It started out with a great big huge riff, really, and I didn't know what to do with it. I'd sit and play it for ages. And gradually it worked itself into a song. This song was the longest piece of work, I think, because normally if I don't get anywhere within 10 minutes, I give up and just shelve whatever I'm doing. But I kind of like this riff, so I right the way until it was actually recorded, I was still sort of writing it with the do it shouty bits, and yeah, but really lyrically it's kind of simple, really. It's, you know, about not wanting to go out but not wanting to stay in. It's about being in that kind of a really in too much of a reality, I suppose. You can't really, you know, being someone who can't do any mood altering substances, I do have to experience every waking hour. I can't really escape unless I go to sleep, and you can't have too much sleep, really. So it's about not really wanting to be aware, not wanting to be go out, stay in. And I suppose if you don't want to go out or stay in, then really what you're saying is you don't want to be who you are right at this minute.
I mean, you were saying something about the loneliness of living in a big city. I mean, am I right? You had a place in Kent that you also live in somewhere sometimes, and but you're famous for living in Camden, and you obviously like it there, but it's obviously frustrating at the same time. I mean, would you want to move away from London at all, but on a permanent basis?
Yeah, I get frustrated that I like Camden because I think no one should like it, and because, you know, like all of London, I think Londoners are insane to live in the place, but I can't seem to get myself out of it just yet. I mean, if I didn't have certain obligations, I would be out of here extremely fast. You know, I think cities are very lonely places. You know, I think being in the middle of a field with no one around is less lonely because you don't see anybody. I think it's but it was also true when I used to go out a lot. I used to actually kind of like people around but not really want to interact. I've always been a little bit withdrawn. So yeah, London is very it gets more unnatural to me as I get older, I think.
So you could see yourself moving out at some point, or
I could, you know. I've lived in London for a long time. And when I moved in London when I was around 19, 20, I thought it was a good place. But I think by now it's been If it wasn't ruined before, it's getting pretty ruined by now, yeah.
And some of those frustrations are born out in this song. This is Graham Coxon with I Don't Want to Go Out. You're listening to Exposure. It's XFM. It's John Kennedy with you until 1, and it's another Exposure album playback. Tonight is Graham Coxon back with a brand new album. Love Travels at Illegal Speeds is the title of it. We've heard the first half. Now we've moved into the second half. Don't Believe Anything I Say is the title of that, and Graham is here with us tonight. What can you say about that song?
This song, yeah. It's kind of, I think, my favourite. I think it's well needed after that last one. I mean, that last one kind of gets a bit intense. So I think this one, although still it's not particularly positive, it has this comfortable monotony about it. And I think it's one of the songs when I seem to really get to the core of some sort of problems, sort of communication problems and thought problems that I might have, and maybe an awful lot of other people, where it's a song about regret and what was I thinking, and if I was made, how can I believe anything I think or say, or I'm a walking liability and all that. It's this kind of negative, but it's one of my favourites on the album, this one, because it just has a sort of this lovely bright sound, and although it's melancholy, I think it's very pretty. I think it's one of the nicest things I've written.
Yeah, and it conjures up some nice, well, not nice necessarily, but it conjures up strong images, like the idea of you lying in the park and
yeah,
just having a contemplative moment in your...
Yeah, it's more reflect. I like the areas of reflection. There's in the record probably more than it's very bipolar. I think I like the more reflective side of it.
Tell It Like It is the next track. What can you tell us about it? There's a bit. I'm trying to think of different things that. There was something in the NME, I think, where you said the A to F sharp in this song was particularly good or something.
Yeah, well, I use A to F sharp a lot. I'm going to try and stop it because it's becoming sort of like one of them habits. But this is like, I was going to say, it's like the LP. It's like this is like a scenario, isn't it? Sort of like some dark rom-com, and it's just about someone packing to go. It's kind of made up, and it sort of reminds me of sort of Tom Petty or Fleetwood Mac. It's got this kind of sort of American-ish. I mean, this is the most American I think anything sounds on this record. I think it sort of has that middle of the road kind of shows my age. This record, this song, I think. But I just thought it was, don't know, a sort of a nice melody. It's sort of is along the sort of Tom Petty in the Cars. But yeah.
And this is it. Graham Coxon, Tell It Like It Is. Graham Coxon, Tell It Like It Is on Exposure XFM from the brand new album Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. Flights to the Sea. Lovely Rain is the next track, and this is the one I kind of was alluding to earlier when I said it was the more folky, or the one that shows the most folk influence in it, in a way. That's, at least it does, yeah, to my ears, or the kind of the way the guitar works at the beginning and everything, and you could hear somebody like Nick Drake playing this kind of song, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got a sort of Richard Thompson-y things going on.
Yeah,
a bit of Mr. Buckley sort of stuff, maybe a bit of Nick Drakey kind of stuff, and it's got that like slack tune guitar. I think I was getting quite a lot out of the DVDs of the Old Grey Whistle Test. Actually, I just remembered I was watching it so much. There's lots of good stuff on those DVDs from a time supposedly when not much was going on in a weird area of the 70s, but an awful lot of good stuff. And I was watching Tim Buckley on that do Dolphins over and over again, and I just was amazed by how expressive he was, and just how he seemed to enjoy singing so much. And I just thought you know, I kind of wanted to do something in a sort of a waltz time, and so this turned up, and it's probably because of watching Mr. Buckley, who's a fantastic singer, that the Tim, well, they both are actually, that this is probably a bit more acrobatic, really, for my usual sort of for my voice. It's probably the most acrobatic I've got.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely song. I mean, when you say, it's interesting that you say, you know, you're watching Tim Buckley do Dolphins quite a lot. I mean, when you're watching it, I mean, what are you making notes of, mental notes about, say, guitar playing or even the way that he would use his
It was
voice?
just like the drummer, you know, the way he was moving his shoulders, and it was just very, it's just a kind of a swingy, you know, that kind of swingy sort of beat, and I wasn't really sort of taking notes particularly. I don't even think Dolphins is I think it's not even in 3/4 Dolphins. So I don't know why this is, but I mean, it just influenced me a lot, and I do play the guitar a lot in that G tuning. So it was kind of it's a very simple song, but I think really I'd never been so flighty with my vocals before, and I sort of enjoyed that about it. And a flute as well. I just thought it seemed to want a flute.
Yeah, no, the results speak for themselves. I think it's great. This is Graham Coxon and Flights to the Sea, Lovely Rain. Graham Coxon, Flights to the Sea, Lovely Rain, from the brand new album, Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. It's in the shops next week, but Graham's come in tonight, a week ahead, to tell us all about it, track by track. It is another Exposure album playback, and What's He Got is the next track. And I seem to remember when you were last here, Graham, we were talking about you playing along to the Jam in your bedroom at home in Essex when you were a kid, and also we talked about bootcut jeans and they were, well, freaking out. You were talking about some of the tracks like Freaking Out, and other tracks were kind of inspired by a reaction to listening to stations like XFM and a number of the bands that were on the radio at that point. And you didn't like their aviator shades and you didn't like their bootcut jeans. And there's a lot of fashion talk in What's He Got.
Yeah.
And you're a very, I don't know, fashion-conscious man, but
I like clothes.
sartorially aware man. And I like all these references to clothes in the songs. But, I mean, this is kind of, it comes across like a song about jealousy, I suppose. And you're trying to work out why somebody doesn't like you.
Yeah, it's like having an aspiration sort of crushed on the old corner of the street. It's like a George Formby update. He had this song that there was a clip of him singing on the Smiths South Bank show, and he's going on about women walking around with men with cauliflower ears, and men like women like those. Why don't women like me? And I thought, I haven't even heard of. It always stayed with me, that little clip of him singing it, you know, with a huge toothy smile. And this is about, you know, when you see someone at a club and you just think they're the coolest person you've ever seen, and you think about them for a few days, and you can't get them out of your head, and then you see them with their other half on, you know, on the corner, you know, near the bank or whatever, and they're obviously in love with each other, and they've got their arms around each other, kissing each other, and you're sort of. And you're sort of stamped on in a way, on the corner, you know, Britannia Junction, and it's just about that tiny little feeling, really, expanded into a song about the absurdity of it, of that sort of thing. It's quite funny. It's like I suppose it's quite English to make a joke out of it, really.
Yeah, but it works. I mean, it amused me when I was listening.
But it is funny, you know, people do have the same clothes. It's like, you know, I've had that sort of quite a lot, you know, when you think you're looking all right, you know, and then you see people who you think look dreadful, and they're really what actually seen as loads cooler.
What's he got? Graham Coxon asks. Here it is. Graham Coxon, what's he got? Britannia Junction. Where's Britannia Junction? That's mentioned in that song.
You know, where the Jazz Cafe in Royal Bank of Scotland is, Camden.
Right, okay, right, yeah, just there. Okay. You always let me down is the next song. I mean, there's a bit of harmonica in what's he got, and this has some nice keyboard work, and I think that these two are the most kind of 60s sounding tracks on the album, I suppose.
I guess, yeah.
What can you tell us about You Always Let Me Down?
I think this is the first thing I wrote around the time when Happiness and Magazines was coming out, and it's just vitriol, isn't it? It's just, it's pretty much a song that you can apply to anything if you're feeling particularly resentful or angry. So it's kind of about that, you know. I'm not sure if it was what it's about particularly. It's not especially autobiographical.
You talk about money, you talk about soul. It seems to be one of the key phrases in the song.
Soul and money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a paradox, isn't it? It's you can't do both at once.
Graham Coxon, You Always Let Me Down. Not personally. It's I'm concerned. You always come up trumps. It is Exposure, it's XFM, and Love Travels at Illegal Speeds is the new album. We've been working our way through it track by track, and See a Better Day is the last song on the record. What can you tell us about See a Better Day, Graham?
Oh, this was difficult because I wrote this chord progression which I really liked, and then I wrote pretty much sang the first verse, and once I sang it, it kind of stuck, and I couldn't get rid of it. But I found the words very embarrassing, or I found that it's incredibly, it makes you extremely vulnerable to say things like that, and it's quite soppy, sentimental, and all that kind of stuff. And I was pretty nervous about it. But I think now I hear that song, the verses afterwards make a bit more sense of what the song really was about, and it's not really about being in love with somebody. It's more, it seems to me to be more of a sort of an infatuation, really. So I'm a bit happier with it. I think it's a pretty song, and I think the verses that are more descriptive of the feeling, I think are very sort of true of those sort of feelings. But it's another song that I can apply really the sentimental side of it to my little girl as well, really. Because a lot of people do assume that these are all romantic things. But quite often there's some paternal stuff happening in them as well.
Graham, thanks so much for coming in.
All right.
It's been good to have you here again, and this is the last track tonight from Graham Coxon on Exposure XFM, the last track on Love Travels at Illegal Speeds. It is See a Better Day.